Hey guys, I know I just put a video out a few moments ago, but I took a break and I decided that this video really needed to be out there. It's very personal to me, and it goes towards every up and coming and aspiring would be cue maker that's yet to be born. Even to established cue makers, this is good. This is good advice. Trust me, I speak from personal experience when I talk about this. And again, it's very serious to me. How should you begin in the queue building world? How should you build your company? Well, in the beginning, you should start off doing repairs, tips and ferrules, and cleaning shafts, and learning how to do wraps, and re-clear coats and polishes and shaft tapers and things like that. And in the background, while you're doing these things, in the background, you should be learning how to build cues. Okay. As you learn to build cues, and you'll learn more and more as you go, via help through Ed and I or other sources, you will eventually get to a point that you feel happy with what you're building. Now, on your first cue, expect a disaster, expect it to be a mess, because it's going to be. I'm just being honest. Uh, the taper is going to be jacked up. If you do points, they're not going to line up. And if you go so far as to venture into inlays, you're going to have glue lines, and all kinds of stuff are going to happen there. It's not going to be a quality cue, and you do not ever need to sell that cue. Um, Only when you get to a point that you truly feel to yourself that this is a quality cue. I have built a quality product. It is flawless. There's nothing wrong with it. Then, and only then, should you begin to offer your product to the cue world. Because if you don't, and you produce a cue that is subpar, it's going to ruin your name. It really is. To put it in perspective, take the repairman. The repairman can put on, 1,000 tips, good, perfect job, and never hear a word about it. He puts on one bad tip, the whole pool room knows in 10 minutes. And the same thing's going to happen to you if you start issuing out your product too early. You should learn the process, build them in accordance to the process and your developed technique, and time test it. Check for warpage, things like that, and then begin to promote and push and sell your cue and your product. Whether you're building cues or building shafts, whatever you're producing, time test it, make sure it's done to the absolute best of your ability, and then and only then send it out to the public. And that leads to another topic. How do I sell my cues? Well, there's a few ways to sell your cue. You can promote them on social media, like I do. You can straight sell them locally. You can make a website and sell them on there. You can connect to other different channels, like Amazon, places like that. There are plenty of ways to sell your cue. Now, the way that I prefer to do it is I like to utilize social media to sell my product, and I do not, or at least I no longer, take custom orders. I produce a cue. When it's completed and ready for sale, then and only then do I offer it to the general public for sale, because it cuts out a lot of mess and problems along the way. Such as if you start taking custom orders, and there's nothing wrong with taking custom orders. I mean, For a good 15 to 20 years of my queue building career, and I'm 30 years into it, I did nothing but custom orders. But I got myself, and I don't mind saying this, most of you already know, I got myself into a position to where once I introduced it to social media, aka Facebook, uh, sales went through the roof. It just took off. And I found myself putting orders way too close together. And keep in mind, this is 100% custom queue builds. And once you realize that you cannot put a time on a custom queue, because it's really not up to you, you know. But once you realize you can't put a timestamp on a custom queue as far as when it can be finished and delivered, the better off you're going to be. If you do elect to do custom queues, you need to make it very known and clear to the customer that there is no completion date. The wood tells me when to work with it, and the materials tell me when I can use it and work with it, and the materials and wood tell me when it's done, because you can only go as fast as the materials will let you go. If you rush that job, I mean, granted, you can build any queue in the world in 7 days. You really can. But are you going to want it? Probably not. Odds are it's going to warp. You're going to have issues if you rush that job. So my advice to you would be to start off not offering custom orders. By any means, don't offer custom orders. Build what you want to build what is in your heart, what's in your mind, and what you can create. What you decide you want to build, and sell those. And then in time, if you want to take a handful of custom orders, no more than 5 at a time, just go ahead and do so. But don't do what I did about 10, 11 years ago. I found myself in a position to where, again, once I introduced it to social media, sales went through the freaking roof, and before I knew it, I had over 300 orders, 323 or 25, I think. I had over 300 orders that were yet to be filled or even yet to begin, because it is much easier to sell a product than it is to build one, especially in the key world. And ultimately, I found myself in a position to where I had placed too many orders way too close together, and I had to make a decision, and I decided that, these, and I was given time frames, and that's a really bad thing to do. Again, learn from my mistakes. When I gave these time frames, again, I had over 300 orders at the time. The plan was great. It sounded good, but the execution was impossible, because ultimately you don't have control over how long it takes to produce a queue. You have to factor in the unknowns, natural disasters, weather, material state, wood dryness, things like that. And so, with those things being said, it's impossible to put a date on it. Well, I had to make the decision at that time, because I collected all this money for all these orders in a very short amount of time. And I found myself probably 15 years out on queue builds. And, to some degree, let me back up. I had to issue a lot of refunds. And of course, I was building queues along the way. But I made a public statement to everybody a decade ago, hey, this is my fault. I put too many orders too close together. You have two options. You can either elect to get a refund, or I can build your queue. Well, 90% of them, 80 to 90% of them, they didn't care. They wanted the queue. And The other 10, 20% I gave refunds to. And I probably gave upwards of $20,000 to $30,000 in refunds in less than 3 days. And well, that took its toll on me, of course. But it was all in an effort to try to just keep my name clean. But ultimately, you'll hear both good and bad about KCC, Crown Custom Cues. That's my company. And as of today, I still, 10 years later, I still have a small refund list that I'm working on. You know, uh, Out of those 300 and something orders, I built probably 60% of them, 50 to 60% of them. And then I gave another X amount in refunds. And as of today, I probably have 40, 35 to 40 still yet to be resolved. I'm working on them slowly. As I build a queue, I take 20% of every sale and I add it to a refund pool or account. And then as that account builds up to equal somebody's initial payment for one of those orders that never got filled, I give them a refund. But there comes a time that you have to make a decision. Do I continue battling this thing back and forth and trying to make a living building queues and to pay? Because remember, this is what I do for a living. So do you continue building queues and pay your bills and take care of your house and your family and things like that? Or do you focus on only taking care of the issues at hand with your refunds and keeping the customers happy? So I made the decision to um, discontinue custom orders altogether. And never again will I do another custom order. And, again, this is all self inflicted. It was my fault. But I have spent every day for the past decade living with that mistake and trying to make it better. Granted, today, these days, it's a lot better. I got my following back, I got my fan base back, and things are looking a lot better than they were back then. But the point is, and what I'm trying to tell you is, be careful how you produce your cues, be careful how you sell them, and do not start by offering custom work. The best thing, and I said this before, the best thing you can do as a up and coming cue maker is produce what you want to produce and sell it when it's done. That way, all you have to do is make the sale, collect the money, ship it. Done. There's no wait time. Excuse me. And that will help you avoid all the negatives that can happen. Okay. But again, I wanted to produce this video. It's really short, but I wanted to produce this video to let the aspiring and up and coming cue maker know what can happen, because it happened to me. Now, again, today, things look good, or at least a lot better. Yeah, I am very OCD. I take a lot of pride in my work, and based on my customers, I build a very quality product. But that one mistake of putting too many orders too close together put a big scar on my name, and there's nothing I can do about it. You know, the best that I can do is give it time. Hope the dust finally settles. Again, we're talking 10 years ago, and the negative still floats around. But in all honesty, the way I look at it is the amount of negative people that have something to say about my work versus the amount of positive people. It amounts to maybe a speck of dust on a cue ball. To put it in perspective, there are thousands more people that appreciate and like my work than the one or two that trickle in that have something negative to say. And I just don't want to see you get in that same trap, because I'm here to tell you it's not fun. And it can definitely make that fire that you have a little bit smaller, and that desire a little bit less. So please take it from me. Don't do what I did. And again, yeah, I have recovered from it a great deal, but it's still there. It's still lingering. Okay. Um, that's about the best advice that I can provide to the up and coming key maker. And I can provide this advice knowing from the bottom of my heart that it's sound advice because I've lived it. I'm still living it to some degree. So, yeah, while I do make these videos for you guys and try to teach the player and the key maker um, how to produce quality products and it as well, and teach you tips and stuff on playing, things like that. Behind the scenes, I'm still dealing with the same battle to some degree, nowhere near where it was, but to some degree. And I don't mind stating that, you know, out of the 30 years that I've been building queues, this has only affected me for the last 8 years, I guess you'd say 7, 8 years. So, um, I'm pulling out of it and it's getting better by the minute, but I don't want to see you guys get into the same situation. So please take it from me. Build what you want to build. When it's completed, then you sell it. And then once that has been established and you have developed a good solid name, if you elect to build custom orders, by all means do so, but only take a certain amount at a time. That way you don't get stuck in the same trap. And tell your customers, no, I can't give you a definitive date. The queue will get done when the queue gets done. And that's what you have to tell them. I mean, uh, we're not working at McDonald's. We're not making Big Macs. We don't have to drive through a window. You can't say it's going to be ready in 5 minutes. You can't put a date on it. And if you do put a date on it, it's going to get messed up. So just, as politely as possible, let the customer know, I really can't give you a date as far as completion. And again, this is for custom orders. I can't really give you a date as far as completion because I have minimal control over how quickly this can happen. Again, based off of the moisture content of wood and material availability, hands-on labor time. You put all that stuff together, you really cannot put a date on it. But either way, I'm starting to repeat myself. So I would say that this advice video is complete. I hope it touched somebody out there. And it is not a subject that I take very lightly, especially in my situation. But again, I hope that by me sharing this, it will prevent up and coming key makers from making the same mistake. Either way, I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate you guys subscribing and becoming members and joining and everything else that you do. I really do. This means a lot to me. And Ed and I have a lot of content coming up in the near future. And I hope it's been helpful. I hope everything that we've offered has been helpful so far. Until then, we will see you next time. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.